What a week. We are maybe days away. Well, certainly days away. We could be one day away. We could do it tonight if you're watching on Juneteenth. But we're days away from crowning a brand new NBA champion, a champion that has never held the Larry O'Brien trophy before. A city that's going to finally know what that experience is like. But are we doing these finals justice? We got that. We got some more Tyler Perry news coming up. And Kevin Durant. Is he washed or is he not? Coming up on this week's episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations.
I'm excited to talk more about my background.
Also worked in so many places of media, which you will find out more. Two friends who like wrestling that talk about wrestling. To now, let's start a podcast.
Grassroots style, the way me and Brian have done it. Every opportunity is an opportunity.
Kind of makes me want to step my game up a little bit more just because the space is so oversaturated. Anyone can start a podcast.
I live in New York City, so there's, opportunity everywhere in New York. Like, everyone's doing something. You go to a bar for happy hour, the bartender has a business.
And you apply that same strategy to network. You being very intentional. Find your why. What's the reason? Then do it.
Podcasting allowed me to break out of my comfort zone, to break out of my shell.
This is 6HM Productions.
Before we get started with today's show, I just want to remind you that you can save 10% on your order with Symphony of Balloons, a luxury balloon company that also offers a 360 camera. Just simply mention you heard about them on Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations. This show, of course, is brought to you by 6HM Production. I am your host, Brian H. Waters. Folks, as we get ready for the crowning of a new NBA champion, I have to admit, I am concerned. Y'all know how I've been about sports media, right? I've always talked about how the media landscape has taken a toll, has gone to a different direction. Yes, there's more player pods, but are they all necessarily good? Now, again, there are a lot of great ones. All the Smoke, 7 p.m. Brooklyn, just to name a few. But then there's also just a lot of NBA players just talking, but not just NBA, all sports, right? But getting off of that, even the people responsible, the journalists responsible for driving the correct narratives around the NBA championship is doing a disservice. We're in the NBA finals, right? And every time I log on to YouTube, every time I log on to television, if I'm in the gym and I see ESPN, Fox Sports, I see the topic bars. Y'all know what I see? I see Kevin Durant. Where's his next destination? I see the New York Knicks. Who's going to be the next head coach? But what about Shea? What about Tyrese? What about Jalen Williams? Now, I have not followed the NBA to a T the way I used to. See me rocking this Kobe Bryant shirt. During the days of Kobe, I was all in, right? I watched all the stories. I can remember having a league pass the year that Kobe Bryant scored 81 points, right? It was, I was like, I could splurge, I'm paying the cable bill. Shoot, why not? I'm going to get the league pass. And I would watch games. It was Rashard McCain's on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I would watch all these type of games. Now, nowadays we got access to sports. If you know, you know. But I'll admit, I'm not up to date. I paid a lot more attention during the playoffs. I know I had a rooting interest in the New York Knicks, especially after my Lakers went down. I was hoping for a Lakers-Knicks finals. I know people's out there saying it was a pipe dream. And I was thinking, there's no way we're going to get the Thunder and the Pacers. The Knicks going to come back. Well, that was not to be. And everybody wants to talk about the smart market teams, right? And I heard somebody, it was a football analyst, I may have mentioned this on the last show. They said if this was the NFL, we wouldn't care, right? Let's say it was the Indianapolis Colts and the Carolina Panthers, right? We would be all about the story. Or, you know what? even when it was like the St. Louis Rams and the Tennessee Titans, we wasn't downplaying, right? We wasn't talking about market size. We were ready for a good football game. And that's the problem that what I've seen with these finals. Jalen Williams is becoming a star. I be honest with you, didn't pay much attention to him, but he's becoming a star right in front of our very eyes. But dominating the headlines is Kevin Durant and his next destination. And I remember during the 2014 NBA Finals, it was all about can LeBron, D Wade, and Chris Bosh three-peat. And then LeBron felt like he was doing it by himself. That's what he essentially was saying during his pressers. And then we follow up with the Spurs were going to win that championship. And then we got into the summer of LeBron, the summer of Melo. But we let it breathe. We aren't doing the Thunder a disservice. John Morant called it out, said we talk about everything else but the game. Now, yes, we've heard about the Oklahoma City Thunder more, but we got to be real with ourselves. Even when Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kendrick Perkins, when they were all there, it didn't feel such a small market because Kevin Durant was the next big thing. So he felt like there was a big start. He went from Seattle. Obviously, they moved from Seattle to OKC. That was a story. But we felt like they was positioned as the next big thing, the next dynasty, potentially. This Thunder team hasn't been presented like that. Sure, Shea's the MVP. Sure, basketball heads know him and they've been following him. But what about the people, the casual fans? And that's where the problem is. And you can say if LeBron James was going in the finals against Jason Tatum, it would be a different story. Of course, it would be the Lakers and Celtics. But we've done these finals a disservice because we're paying more attention to everything outside. And then we get into the media beefs, right? I've seen people complain about, Richard Jefferson, Doris Burke, excuse me. I've seen people complain about them, but what about the game? And you know what? To be honest with you, these games have been more exciting than the past few years. Last year, didn't really care for it. Mavericks and Celtics, salty, of course, but didn't care for it. The year before that, I sure didn't care about the Nuggets and the Heat. It was like, could playoff Jimmy will his team to a championship? That was the big thing. But this year, we're getting good basketball because what the hell, right? Tyrese Halliburton always finds a way to attempt to bring his team back. Now, we know he's hurt. I really hope that he's at least 80%. They're going to be in Indy for Game 6, if you're watching this before that. So I really hope that we can get 7 games. And then maybe, just maybe, we'll give these finals the service that it needs. Speaking of Kevin Durant, I got to know one question. Is Kevin Durant washed? Did I miss something? I understand that he has his teams that he's willing to sign extensions with. As the Phoenix Suns, the big three just didn't work. The big three of him, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. I understand that. But still, Kevin Durant. Sure, he's 37, or get ready to be 37. But there's some guys, even in their later ages, they're still ballers. And he was somebody that, for a while, remember, people say he was the best player in the world over LeBron James. And you remember mid-2000s. Honestly, before Durant joined the Warriors, I remember that being the conversation a lot of time. And not to say he diminished his role or diminished his greatness by going to the Warriors. I wasn't a fan of it, but there's no doubt about it. He was the best player on that team. He became a winner, obviously, but now it's always been, can he win without Steph, right? Magic never won without Kareem. Jordan never won without Pippen. Can he win without Steph? And, he's been tried it with the Nets, didn't work. Trying it with the Suns, not working. Now the word on the street is that he's only willing to sign extensions with the Rockets or the Spurs. And potentially he wanted to talk to the Knicks. That's what we heard. But they said no. So, do I understand? Sure. Why not? I mean, there's part of me that says, well, if you bring in Kevin Durant, then there's a superstar. I heard Iman Shumpert on 7 p.m. Brooklyn podcast with Melo and Kaz. He said that or it was either him or Melo, but one of them, the conversation was, what's New York missing? And said Jalen Brunson needs that 1-2, that, with the shooting guard. Or I would even say score, right? We know I look at Kevin Durant, somebody who could play all positions almost, but I think if you put him on the Knicks, they're a championship contender. I don't know what happened in Phoenix, but I think they would find a way. But, a few years ago in this week, I watched What You Say. He said, the Knicks wasn't cool. It's all about the Nets. Now, guess what? He's supposed to say that. But now the owner is saying, word on the street is James Dolan didn't forget, and he would be petty like that. Said, nope, don't want him on my team. Now, if you're a Knicks fan, do you want Kevin Durant on your team? I think no matter where he goes, well, I ain't going to say where he goes, but certain teams he go to, instant championship contenders. Because he's still brilliant as well. Now, if I'm the Washington Wizards, I make a play for him. 1 year. He doesn't have a no trade clause, right? Why not? Get him. He might not sign an extension. Don't give you got to take a risk. Y'all need to sell tickets. And Kevin Durant back home in D.C., I'm just saying, Wizards, it's not like y'all had a lot to play for in the post-John Wall, Bradley Beal era. Need to make a splash. This would be the greatest splash you can do it. Sticking with basketball, Angel Reese. That woman is brilliant. There's been this narrative that Angel Reese does nothing but get MeBounds. She misses a layup, she gets her own rebound, misses a couple of times before, she puts it back in. But every time that rebound comes, the numbers go up. 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Again, people are always going to make her the villain. They're always going to criticize her. Now, she's embraced it. And I love that when she talked with Lisa Leslie. See, the thing is I've seen players such as Robert Griffin III who wouldn't listen to some OGs. Angel's listening to the OGs. She listened to Lisa Leslie say, girl, we got to work on them layups. She's a sophomore. She's still young. She has prayerfully a long career ahead of her. But one thing she's going to do is get the bag. And that's what she did. Apparently, she's going to trademark MeBounds. So now, y'all want to say something? Sure. And it's always the keyboard warriors that can't even dribble a basketball, let alone make a lucky shot. That's always got something to say about her. It's like they pounce on her, try to immediately say something. And all these guys have all this energy for women's basketball players. And it's just sickening. Speaking of women's basketball, things were turning up. The other day, I was watching a little scuffle between the Indiana Fever and the Phoenix Mercury. And this is what I want to see, We saw that with Angel Reese. The girl grabbed her hair and she pushed off, and then Tina Charles stepped in, and then those two had a conversation. It's like, look, I got to step up for my teammate. She said, yeah, it was the moment. I love to see it. Whatever's going to drive the ratings in a clean and safe way, do it. But, the Indiana Fever, they are the team that they're going to be the team that, people who love Caitlin Clark, they're going to root for. And Sophie Cunningham is a tough one. And, there's been public statements, or we've seen her views, and, but nonetheless, I choose to root against them. I'm upset that they beat the Liberty to hand them their first loss. I'm going to root against them, and I'm going to have fun doing it. Bottom line, do I take away from their greatness? Do I take away from the greatness of Caitlin Clark? No, but that's what sports is. You choose one, you pick one, you root against them, or you pick a few, and that's the team that I choose to root against. Go Sparks, first and foremost. That's my favorite team. Skylar Diggins is my favorite player. Shout out to the Seattle Storm. And obviously, I love the New York Liberty, rooting interest. So shout out to them. But let women's basketball, let it keep cooking, man, because it's just getting better and better. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support this podcast by wearing a t-shirt, whether it's the one that says breaking through glass ceilings or the one that says no ceilings above success, simply go to foryourwear.com. Also, you can support some of your other favorite podcast and content creators, including Those Wrestling Girls, Seahawk, and the Wrestling Club. And you can support some of your favorite independent wrestlers, including Jay Bougie, Trisha Dora, Chaz the Dawn. Shoot, all the Pure Ignorance is on there. So go on foryourwear.com, go under the personalities, you'll find Brian H. Waters, and buy a t-shirt. And remember, I'll give you a shout out on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, are you in the gym every week? Are you looking to kind of keep yourself cool while you work up a nasty sweat? Well, I got the best thing for you. Cooling bands, bandanas, cooling towels, and so much more. Go to Vertical Athletics, get your favorite team in MLS or MLB, or guess what? Now they have a custom option so you can upload your own logo and you can save 10% at checkout when you enter the code Brian H. Waters. Go to vertical.com, use the code Brian H. Waters to save 10% on some of your best cooling gear. Full transparency here. The show was done, completed, everything was finished, right? But as a producer, I also forgot to write something on my run sheet, and that was a conversation that I had kicked off on X. So we're going to put that right here in the middle of the show. Here we go. So I was looking through Twitter or X, and I saw something about Mike Trout. And it was how there was a time when Mike Trout hit a home run when the Tampa Bay Rays had 4 men in the outfield. And it made me wonder, has there been another franchise that has been a true disservice to their star player? Allow me to explain. When you think of Mike Trout, if Mike Trout's career was to end today, it will be, no doubt, first ballot Hall of Famer. You may even say unanimous. 0 World Series appearances. 1 playoff appearance. That's crazy, right? You know, quite frankly, 11 times All-Stars, 3 MVPs, and he was the Rookie of the Year, right? But when you go down to postseason batting, 1 year. Yep. 2014. Anybody want to guess his record? 0-3. They were swept by the Kansas City Royals. Mike Trout was 1 for 12 with 1 home run and 1 RBI. That is the playoff legacy of Mike Trout. So I thought about this. Which team has done their star player a bigger disservice, right? Now I think about Kevin Durant and how he hasn't been able to reach the status that he was before. But at the end of the day, the Oklahoma City put a team around him. He did reach the NBA Finals. He reached the conference finals multiple occasions, right? So another player I thought about was Ken Griffey Jr. Now, as we go down, because I was sitting there thinking, I was like, I do not remember Ken Griffey Jr. going to the playoffs outside of the Seattle Mariners. Now, he is a Hall of Famer, MVP. Unfortunately, he just missed, I think it was three people that didn't vote. But Ken Griffey Jr., 3 times in the playoffs. 2 times with the Mariners. 1 time with the White Sox. When he was with the White Sox, he batted .400, so that was cool. But, we all know he got eliminated in the first round to the Baltimore Orioles in 97, 95, the game that Ken Griffey Jr.'s winning run is based off of. He was able to, he still made the, he hit decent, right? But if you look at Griffey's career, he spent 9 years with the Cincinnati Reds, 0 playoff appearances, 13 years in Seattle, only 2 playoff appearances. But they were competitive, right? Just missed the playoffs, 96, but they were competitive. I've always said that I wish he would have stayed with Seattle. But I also thought about some other people. Dan Marino, they did him a disservice. Barry Bonds, maybe, but the Giants did make the World Series. Tony Gwynn's Padres did make the World Series. Somebody put shout out to my boy Randy. He said the Cal Ripken, Baltimore Orioles. They won the World Series his second year, and then made the playoffs in 96, 97. Unfortunately, they wouldn't be competitive outside of that. But I look at a lot of these franchises, and you have great players, but maybe they're going to be forgotten. Somebody said, is Phillip Rivers the greatest quarterback never to win the Super Bowl? Would you say the Chargers did him a disservice? I'm not going to say the Chargers did, only because they were competitive every year. AFC title game appearances, they just could never get over the hump. Same with like the Buffalo Bills and Jim Kelly. Got to the Super Bowl, just couldn't win it. But when I look at Mike Trout, I think Dan Marino got to the playoffs, got to the Super Bowl early in his career, but Mike Trout has never been out of the first round. He's never been out of the first round. He's had 3 games. Like I said, they got swept. 1 for 12. So I don't think, and let me know, I don't think there's another franchise that's done a bigger disservice to their star player. Sure, they brought in Albert Pujols. Sure, they had Shohei Ohtani. But they have nothing to show for it, not even playoff appearances. I want to switch gears real quick before we get out of here. Tyler Perry being sued. If y'all watch The Oval, like I do, the actor who plays Derek is suing him for sexual assault. Let me make sure I get this actor's name right. Derek Dixon. Does he play Derek on the show? But yeah, so I've read the text messages. Not going to bore y'all with that, but I'll say this. What I saw from the text messages, on the text messages alone, it was the actor and Tyler Perry having a friendly conversation, in which Tyler Perry revealed that their friendship should be a secret because everybody can't know who he's friends with. And during that time, he told him, basically let himself go, let himself experience love. The actor revealed that, he does need to let himself go. Now, according to the lawsuit, he said he felt like he had to take the position, felt like Tyler Perry was going to use his influence, and he sued him for $250 million. He also accused Tyler Perry of trying to get into bed with him. So it's wild, it's spicy. Somebody posted Tyler Perry was getting ready to buy BET. Here comes somebody else trying to sue him. I don't know. Hopefully they get this settled. I would hate to see Tyler Perry go down like that, but I also hate to see if this happened, seeing this man's story being, tainted and nobody believing him if it is true. So, oh boy, that's all I have to say. And then last but not least, R. Kelly was rushed to the hospital. Apparently suffering an overdose. And, thing about R. Kelly that's so complicated is, I hear a lot of people talk about separating the music and the art. What's so complicated for me is that the music and the art reflected the actions. You know what I mean? Like Hulk Hogan, right? Which rumors out there that Hogan was on his deathbed. All right, I hope not. But Hulk Hogan has a lot of very racist views, right? Let's just say he's racist, right? That still, or even if you say that's Terry Bollea, the wrestler Hulk Hogan, that's an art, right? That doesn't reflect his racist views. This sounds crazy, but follow me. R. Kelly's singing songs about stuff he's doing to young girls, unforgivable. So that's why I say, I wouldn't celebrate his death. I hope he gets whatever treatment that he can make a full throttle change. But I don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for this week's episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations. Be sure to subscribe to the channel right here. And remember, do not let anyone place a ceiling above your success. So long, everyone.